Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we really try to cut through the noise and get to the insights that truly matters. You know that feeling, right? Where every single competitor seems to be slashing prices or piling on features, and you're just trying to keep your head above water.
Constantly reacting.
Exactly. Constantly reacting to the last move. It feels like this frantic race to the bottom sometimes.
It really can.
But today we're diving into something quite different. A truly transformative approach to business thinking that might just offer a way out of that cycle. It's called Blue Ocean Strategy.
A classic.
Definitely. This influential work by Kim and Renée Mauborgne first came out back in 2005, and they put out an updated edition in 2015. Our mission for this deep dive is really to pull out the most important insights from this book. It fundamentally challenges how we usually think about competition.
It really does.
And it encourages businesses to find entirely untapped market spaces. So here's the big question we're tackling. What if you could make the competition completely irrelevant? So when we talk about business, most of us, I think, picture this constant battle. Companies just duking it out for market share, trying to one-up each other on price or features.
Right, the standard picture.
It's like trying to win a pie-eating contest when you're already full. This painful reality is what Kim and Mauborgne call the red ocean.
That's the term, yeah. And it's a really vivid image. Imagine like a shark tank where every business is a shark and the water is, red from all the fighting.
Yeah.
In a red ocean, you're operating in markets that already exist. They're crowded. The whole goal is just to beat your rivals, right? You're exploiting demand that's already there.
Right.
And companies often feel like they have to make this false choice, either differentiate or compete on low cost. You can't do both, supposedly.
Right, the traditional trade-off.
Exactly. And this leads almost inevitably to these brutal market share fights and, ultimately shrinking profits for pretty much everyone involved. It's a zero-sum game. And frankly, it sounds exhausting.
Absolutely exhausting. But okay, then there's this much more appealing idea. The blue ocean. If the red ocean is that crowded, bloody shark tank, what does a blue ocean look like? Is it actually possible to escape?
It is. The blue ocean is, it's the exact opposite. It represents untapped market space, places where competition is either minimal or maybe even non-existent because you've effectively created new demand. See here, companies truly make the competition irrelevant. And the revolutionary part, the really fascinating bit, is that you pursue both differentiation and low cost simultaneously. Both together, yeah. The result isn't just growth, it's profitable growth. It's innovation. It's a whole new playing field you've created. And this isn't just, a nice theory. It's a fundamentally different way to even think about strategy itself. It's about finding a way to operate where you make the rules.
Okay, so instead of just fighting harder in those crowded markets, Blue Ocean Strategy is saying, wait, let's redefine the market entirely, create completely new value that just sidesteps the competition.
Precisely.
But how does a company actually do that, achieve that kind of breakthrough? What really differentiates a blue ocean company from one stuck back in that red ocean fight?
The absolute cornerstone, the real linchpin, is what they call value innovation. That's the secret sauce, if you like.
Value innovation, okay.
It's not about choosing between creating value for customers, that's differentiation, or leading on cost. No. Value innovation is about combining both. It's about creating a quantum leap in value for both the company and for the customers. I think the authors put it perfectly. Something like creating a leap in value for both the company and the customers.
A leap in value.
Yeah, a real jump. It's a true win-win that actually redefines the market. Think of it as finding a way to give customers, say, premium value, but without the premium price tag, while at the same time, you're fundamentally reshaping your own cost structure. It's not a compromise. It's a strategic breakthrough.
That combination sounds, fantastic, almost like finding a unicorn, as you said. But is it really achievable for, every business? Or are there some industries where value innovation is just harder to pull off?
Well, it's definitely challenging, no doubt, but the argument is that it's universally applicable. The beauty of the Blue Ocean Strategy approach is that it gives you practical tools.
Okay, tools, good.
Yeah, tools to help any organization, doesn't matter the industry or size, to systematically engineer this value innovation. It's not about just hoping for a lucky break. It's about having a framework to actually create it.
Right.
And that's where we get into the practical how-to.
The how-to, yes. How do companies actually find these blue oceans or, create them?
Okay, so that's where the frameworks really come into play. The first big one is called the 4 actions framework.
4 actions. Got it.
This is a really critical tool for breaking out of those red oceans. It forces you to ask 4 pivotal questions about your industry and how things are currently done. So you map out what your industry typically offers, and then you ask. First, eliminate. Which factors that the industry just takes for granted should be completely eliminated?
Things nobody really values anymore.
Exactly, or things customers might not truly value, but they add significant cost. Second, reduce. Which factors should be reduced well below the current industry standard? Where can you maybe undershoot expectations a bit without hurting the core value? Third, raise. Which factors should be raised well above the industry standard? What are the things that truly delight customers or offer really disproportionate value?
Okay.
And finally, the exciting one, create. Which factors should be created that the industry has never offered? What unmet needs or, latent demands can you uncover and serve?
Eliminate, reduce, raise, create.
That's it. Answering these questions helps you craft what they call a new value curve. And that's basically a visual blueprint of your reimagined strategy. It should look distinctly different from your competitors.
Okay, so you've used those 4 actions. You've got this new value curve idea bubbling away.
Yeah.
But how do you actually, map it out? How do you see if it's really that different from the red ocean you're trying to leave behind?
Right. Good question. That's precisely where the second tool, the strategy canvas, becomes so invaluable. It's essentially a diagnostic tool.
A diagnostic, okay?
Yeah. You plot the key factors that companies compete on in your industry along the bottom axis, the x-axis.
Like price, features, service.
Exactly. Whatever is relevant for that specific industry. Then, on the vertical y-axis, you show the level of offering high or low that companies provide on each of those factors. By plotting your own current or proposed strategy against your competitors' curves on this canvas, you can clearly see where everyone else is investing, where they look similar, and crucially, where you can diverge and innovate.
Ah, I see. It gives you a picture.
A very clear picture. The goal is to create a new strategy canvas where your value curve looks, as they say, dramatically different from everyone else's. It really is a powerful diagnostic. I remember using this with a client once.
Yeah.
They thought they knew their market inside out, but when we actually drew that canvas, wow, it was like a cold splash of water, but, in a good way. It instantly clarifies where the opportunities are and where you need to innovate.
That makes a lot of sense. A visual really helps crystallize things.
Yeah.
Okay, so beyond those sort of internal strategic shifts, the book also gives us ways to completely reframe how we even look at our industry, our competition, our customers, through the 6 paths framework. How do these paths help you find those really new opportunities?
Yeah, the 6 paths are designed to systematically push you beyond the conventional boundaries of competition. They help unlock new market space by looking in places companies normally overlook.
Okay, so what are they?
All right, path 1. Look across alternative industries. Don't just look at your direct competitors. Look at industries that offer different products or services but meet the same basic customer need.
Right.
Think NetJets. They didn't just compete with other private jet services. They saw themselves as an alternative to first-class commercial flights. They solved the need for quick, premium travel differently.
Ah, okay. Broader perspective.
Exactly. Path 2. Look across strategic groups within industries. These are groups of companies within an industry that pursue similar strategies. Toyota's Lexus, for instance. They brilliantly bridged the gap between luxury brands like Mercedes and BMW and high-end volume brands like, Toyota itself. They combine luxury and affordability, appealing across those traditional groups.
Got it. Path 3.
Look across the chain of buyers. Often industries focus on one buyer group like the purchaser, but there are also users and influencers. Who are you targeting? Novo Nordisk, the insulin company, is a great example. They shifted focus from just doctors to the patients themselves, designing insulin pens that were much easier for patients to use. That created huge value for the end user.
Right. Thinking of the whole chain. Okay, 4.
Path 4. Look across complementary product and service offerings. What happens before, during, and after your product is used? Think about Barnes & Noble adding cafes to their bookstores. They realize people often want a coffee while they browse or read. It's looking at the total experience, not just the core product.
Makes sense. Path 5.
Look across the functional emotional orientation of an industry. Some industries compete mainly on price and function, others more on feelings and emotion. Can you shift that? Swatch is the classic example here. They took watches largely functional time-telling devices and turned them into fun, affordable fashion accessories, playing on emotion and self-expression.
Totally changed the game.
Okay.
Okay, last one, path 6.
Path 6. Look across time. What major trends are unfolding that will reshape your industry's value? Can you shake those trends? Apple is a master at this, right? They consistently capitalized on trends like digitization, connectivity, mobile technology, creating things like the iPod and iPhone by anticipating where things were headed, not just reacting.
It's really fascinating to hear how these diverse examples, I mean, they really can spark ideas, can't they? No matter what industry you're actually in.
Absolutely. The paths are designed to be universally applicable thought starters.
But, we keep coming back to this. Even the most brilliant strategy, the most amazing blue ocean idea, it's pretty useless without execution, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does the book address actually making it happen?
Yeah, execution is just as critical as the strategy creation itself.
Absolutely. The book introduces a concept called tipping point leadership.
Tipping point leadership.
Yes. It's not about massive, top-down, resource-intensive change initiatives, which often fail. Instead, it focuses on identifying and concentrating your efforts on what they call hotspots.
Hotspots. These are the areas, activities, people, resources within the organization where change is relatively easy to achieve, but can have a disproportionately large impact. Things that can trigger rapid change with surprisingly minimal resources. It's about finding leverage.
Okay, so finding those key leverage points.
Precisely. And alongside that, there's another crucial concept for execution: fair process.
Fair process. Sounds important.
It is, because strategy shifts often involve significant change for people within the organization. Fair process emphasizes the importance of involving people in the strategic decisions that affect them. It's built on 3 core principles.
Okay, what are they?
First, engagement. Involve people in the decisions. Ask for their input, allow them to challenge ideas. Second, explanation. Be really clear about why final decisions were made. Even if someone's idea wasn't adopted, they understand the reasoning. Third, expectation clarity. Once a decision is made, clearly communicate the new rules, targets, responsibilities. Everyone needs to know what's expected of them and how they'll be assessed.
Engagement, explanation, expectation, clarity.
Exactly. Following these principles builds trust and encourages voluntary cooperation. And that buy-in, that voluntary effort, is absolutely critical for actually adopting the strategy and making it work successfully on the ground.
Because, like you said, a brilliant idea needs to be embraced, really owned, by the people who have to carry it out day to day.
Couldn't agree more. If your team doesn't buy into the vision, even the most ingenious plan is likely to falter.
Okay, so to really drive these points home, maybe we can look at some of those compelling real-world examples of blue ocean success. You mentioned a couple earlier.
Absolutely. Let's dive into Cirque du Soleil a bit more. They didn't just try to be a slightly better, cheaper, traditional circus. They fundamentally redefined circus entertainment.
Right. How do they apply those 4 actions?
Well, think about it. What did they eliminate? Costly elements like animal acts, aisle concessions, and those celebrity star performers. Gone. What did they reduce? The sort of 3-ring confusion, focusing instead on a single integrated performance. But then, what did they raise? They dramatically raised the artistic quality, the music, the dance, the sophistication, bringing it almost to a theatrical level. And what did they create? A cohesive theme or narrative for each show, unique venues, a whole new form of entertainment combining circus skills with artistic expression.
So they lowered costs by eliminating things, but raised value by adding artistry.
Exactly, both differentiation and low cost. They created a whole new market space appealing to adults, corporate clients, theatergoers, people who would never have gone to a traditional circus, and became a billion-dollar global business without really competing directly with Ringling Bros at the time.
Amazing example. What about another one, maybe in tech?
Okay, tech. Let's talk Nintendo Wii. Remember when PlayStation and Xbox were locked in this escalating war over graphics power, processing speed, realism?
Oh yeah, the console wars?
Right. Nintendo largely stepped out of that fight. They applied blue ocean thinking. They looked at a different group: non-gamers, casual gamers, families, people intimidated by complex controllers and hardcore games.
So what did they change?
They eliminated the need for cutting-edge, super realistic graphics. They reduced the complexity of the controllers and the games themselves, making them intuitive, but they created a totally unique motion-sensing gameplay experience that was active, social, and fun for all ages. And they raised the accessibility and family friendliness.
The Wii Remote, yeah, everyone was playing Wii Sports.
Exactly. They created a massive new market of casual gamers who hadn't been served before, and they absolutely dominated that space for years, making the graphics war largely irrelevant to their success.
Okay, one more. Maybe something completely different.
How about wine? Yellowtail wine from Casella Wines in Australia. A huge success story, especially in the U.S. market.
Brine. Okay, how did they find a blue ocean there? That seems like a crowded market.
It was. Very crowded, very traditional, often seen as intimidating by novice drinkers. Yellowtail didn't try to compete with complex, sophisticated European wines. They eliminated things like confusing wine terminology, vineyard designations, aging potential, all the stuff that makes wine seem complicated. They reduced the range of choice dramatically, just a couple of easy-to-understand varietals initially.
Okay.
But they raised the ease of selection and drinking. They created a fun, simple, approachable wine brand. Consistent taste profile, easy to open bottle, simple, colorful label with that kangaroo. It was designed to appeal to people, especially maybe beer drinkers or cocktail drinkers, who found the traditional wine category off-putting.
Making wine fun and simple.
Precisely. And they exploded. Became one of the fastest growing brands and a top U.S. wine import, creating a huge new segment of everyday wine drinkers.
Wow. These examples, I mean, Cirque du Soleil, Nintendo Wii, Yellowtail wine.
Yeah.
They're so diverse. It really shows the versatility of the strategy across totally different industries. It's not just for tech giants or entertainment companies.
Not at all. It proves the underlying principles can work anywhere if applied creatively.
So after diving deep into all of this, if you had to boil it down, what are the absolute most important, concise takeaways for our listeners, the things they really need to remember?
Okay, pulling it all together, here are what I see as the key takeaways. First, and maybe most importantly, stop focusing so much on beating the competition. Focus instead on making them irrelevant by creating new, uncontested market space.
Shift the focus.
Right. Second, use structured frameworks like the 4 actions, the strategy canvas, the 6 paths to systematically rethink your strategy and find ways to create new demand, not just fight over existing demand. Third, remember that innovation doesn't always have to be about high-tech breakthroughs. It's often fundamentally about redefining value, maybe by simplifying, maybe by adding complementary services, maybe by changing the emotional appeal.
Value innovation again.
Exactly. Fourth, that combination of differentiation and low cost. It's not just possible, it's incredibly powerful. That's the core of value innovation and capturing new markets profitably. And finally, never forget execution. A brilliant blue ocean strategy without genuine buy-in, without fair process, without effective leadership, it will likely fail. Execution is key.
That's a fantastic summary. Really distills years of research and practice into actionable insights. And for those listening who are now eager to actually apply these ideas, what would be some practical first steps?
Okay, action steps.
Yeah, like a mini roadmap. First, maybe map your own industry's current strategy canvas. See where everyone else is competing right now. Understand that red ocean.
Good starting point, definitely.
Second, apply that 4 actions framework. Eliminate, reduce, raise, create to your own offerings. Really challenge the status quo and look for ways to reconstruct your value proposition.
Systematically challenge assumptions.
Third, use the 6 paths framework. Look across alternatives, strategic groups, buyers, complementary offerings, functional emotional appeal, time trends. Use those paths to brainstorm and discover potentially new market opportunities outside your current boundaries.
Expand your vision. Crucial.
Fourth, based on that, try to develop a new blue ocean strategy canvas for your business, one where your value curve looks dramatically different, focused, and compelling.
Visualize the future state.
Fifth, when you have that strategy, plan the implementation carefully. Use tipping point leadership principles and ensure fair process to get your team on board and empowered to make it happen.
Build that buy-in from the start.
And finally, I guess number 6, it's not a one-shot deal, right?
Yeah.
Continuously test, learn, adjust, and keep innovating. Blue oceans can eventually become red oceans if you stand still.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic process. Sustainment requires ongoing attention.
Okay, so those steps, mapping the current state, using the frameworks, developing the new canvas, planning execution, and iterating that seems like a pretty clear roadmap for anyone looking to not just survive, but really innovate and grow. What a journey through this concept. What really strikes me about blue ocean strategy is how, despite its simple core premise, it seems to fundamentally rewire how you approach growth and competition. It's almost counterintuitive in some ways, isn't it?
It absolutely challenges a lot of ingrained business assumptions. It really pushes you to look beyond the obvious, beyond the existing industry boundaries, beyond just fighting rivals head on. And maybe to leave you with a final thought, something directly from the authors themselves. Something to really ponder as you think about your own situation.
Yeah.
The only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition.
Yep. Wow. The only way to beat the competition is to stop trying to beat the competition. That is a truly provocative thought, isn't it? Maybe consider how you might apply that kind of thinking to your own challenges, whether it's in your business, a specific project you're working on, or even perhaps your personal approach to problem solving. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring these powerful ideas. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into making competition irrelevant.